Friends, thank you for being here. Let me start with a question that challenges everything we've been taught about global power in the 21st century. What if what we think we know about geopolitics, about world influence, is fundamentally wrong? What if the true center of world power isn't shifting to the packed cities of Asia or the halls of government in Europe, but is quietly consolidating right beneath our own feet? Right now, while everyone talks about China's rise and America's comeback, there's a simple geographic truth that's almost completely ignored. On a planet running out of resources, where water is getting scarcer than gold and fertile land is disappearing under concrete, our quiet neighbor to the north might just be the fortress on which the West's future is built. For generations, the story about Canada has been one of modesty. We see it as the friendly attic of North America, a vast, icy land known for maple syrup, hockey, and saying sorry all the time. But this picture, as comfortable as it isn't just simple. It's a smokescreen hiding a geopolitical reality of planetary importance. Canada isn't just another big country. It is a geographic colossus that holds the very resources and trade routes that will define the next century of human history. To understand Canada's real place in the New World Order, we have to forget the tourist brochures and media sound bites. We need to look at the hard map, the raw reality of the rocks, water, and ice that define its territory. When we do that, we see a truth that Russian and Chinese strategists already get. Geography isn't just scenery, geography is destiny. And Canada's destiny is to rise silently as the superpower that redefines modern geopolitics. Not with aircraft carriers and nukes, but with something far more basic, total control over the resources that make human life possible. Let's start with the most obvious but most underestimated fact about Canada. Its incomprehensible size. The human mind, used to thinking about the size of European nations or even American states, can't really grasp what it means to be the second largest country on Earth. It covers nearly 10 million square kilometers. To give our European friends some perspective, you could fit the entire European Union inside Canada-IS borders and still have room to lose a country or two. And yet, our entire population, all our cities and infrastructure, fit into a population roughly the size of California's. Economists often see this as a weakness. They argue that our low population density, about 4 people per square kilometer, makes us inefficient and too spread out to compete. But let me be perfectly clear. That is a massive strategic misunderstanding. In a world that is literally overflowing, where billions fight for livable space, where housing crises crush major cities, and where we're draining our water supplies faster than they can refill low population density, combined with massive natural resources, is not a weakness. It is the ultimate luxury of the modern age. The rest of the world faces a brutal reality of overcrowding and resource depletion. Canada, by contrast, has a strategic reserve of raw space that is untouchable, but this space isn't spread out evenly. We know that about 75% of our population lives in a narrow band within 160 kilometers of the American border. This leaves the vast majority of our territory, the ancient Canadian Shield, the Arctic tundra, the endless boreal forest, practically uninhabited. This fact alone creates a defensive reality that is almost unique in the world. Any foreign power thinking about a military invasion would quickly find it logistically impossible. The huge distances between supply points, the rugged terrain, the brutal climate, these things aren't just a bonus to our military alliances. They are a natural fortress built into the land itself. We are protected not just by allies or technology, but by the very geography that defines us. But this vast territory, often romanticized as empty, is a dangerous misconception. It is not empty. It's not even close. It is absolutely packed with what the modern world needs most. Now, let's talk about something few other countries can claim. Our incredible maritime dominance. Canada is unique. We are the only nation on the planet that truly spans 3 oceans. The Atlantic to the east, the historic heart of Western civilization. The Pacific to the west, the emerging center of the next global economic order. And the Arctic to the north, which is rapidly becoming the most strategic body of water in the 21st century. We have the longest coastline in the world, over 243,000 kilometers. To put that in perspective, if you started walking along Canada's coast and never stopped, it would take you more than 30 years to complete the journey. This isn't just a geographical fun fact. It's a statement of immense strategic power. This coastline gives us direct, sovereign access to the world's most critical maritime trade routes. While other nations have to negotiate for access or fight over narrow straits, Canada has an open highway to the entire planet. But the real game changer is the Arctic. As global temperatures rise and the polar ice caps melt, the fabled Northwest Passage is no longer a historical dream. It's becoming a navigable, seasonal reality. This route cuts the shipping time between Europe and Asia by thousands of kilometers, potentially shaving weeks and millions of dollars off each voyage. Currently, global trade flows through choke points like the Suez Canal, the Strait of Malacca, and the Panama Canal. These are vulnerable spots, controlled by other nations and subject to political instability. The opening of the Northwest Passage, a route that runs almost entirely through Canadian sovereign waters, completely rewrites the map of global logistics. The nation that controls this passage controls one of the most valuable shipping lanes of the future, and that nation is Canada. This isn't a possibility for a distant future, it's happening right now. Russia is already investing heavily in its Arctic fleet and infrastructure, understanding the immense power this region holds. Canada sits on the other side of the pole, holding the key to the North American side of this new global highway. But Canada's power isn't just about the space it occupies or the routes it controls. It's about what's in that space. Let's talk about water. In a world facing a growing water crisis, Canada is, without exaggeration, the Saudi Arabia of freshwater. We hold about 20% of the world's freshwater resources, and an incredible 7% of the world's renewable freshwater. While regions from California to India face severe droughts and dwindling reservoirs, Canada sits on vast, pristine lakes and rivers. Lake Superior alone contains 10% of the world's surface freshwater. This abundance is a strategic asset of unimaginable value. In the coming decades, water will be the new oil, and nations will go to great lengths to secure it. Canada doesn't need to search for it. We are literally swimming in it. Then there's our agricultural land. While our southern lands are well developed, vast tracts of the north, currently too cold for large-scale farming, are slowly becoming viable as the climate warms. This phenomenon, known as climate-driven agricultural expansion, means that while other parts of the world struggle with desertification and crop failure, Canada's potential to grow food is actually increasing. In a world with a population heading towards 10 billion, the ability to be a reliable, expanding breadbasket is a form of power that can't be matched by military might. Food security is national security, and Canada is poised to become one of the most food-secure nations on Earth, with a surplus to shape global politics. And of course, we have to talk about minerals and energy. The Canadian Shield is one of the world's richest sources of minerals. We are a leading producer of potash, a crucial fertilizer, uranium, essential for nuclear energy, and a host of critical minerals like nickel, cobalt, and lithium, which are the building blocks of the green energy revolution. As the world transitions away from fossil fuels and towards electric vehicles and battery storage, the demand for these minerals will skyrocket, and Canada has them in abundance in a stable, reliable jurisdiction. This isn't just about economic prosperity, it's about having a chokehold on the supply chain for the technologies of tomorrow. While the world depends on unstable regions for its resources, Canada offers a secure and ethical source. So, when you put it all together, the immense defensible territory, the control over future shipping routes, the unparalleled reserves of fresh water, the expanding agricultural potential, and the vast mineral wealth, the picture becomes clear. Canada is not the world's friendly, harmless neighbor. It is a dormant superpower. Its rise won't be loud or aggressive. It will be quiet, based on the undeniable logic of geography and resources. While other nations posture and compete, Canada's power will grow organically, as the world increasingly comes to depend on what it has. This is the silent ascent of the true north, a geopolitical shift that is hiding in plain sight. The 21st century may not belong to who we expect. It may very well belong to Canada. Thanks for watching. If you found this perspective interesting, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next deep dive into the forces shaping our world. See you next time. Have you ever wondered what makes a country a true global power? It's not just about military might or economic size. Sometimes it's about geography. And when it comes to geography, Canada has been dealt an almost unbeatable hand. Think about it. Canada is bordered by 3 oceans, the Atlantic, the Pacific, and the Arctic. This isn't just a fun fact. It's a source of immense geopolitical power. We have the longest coastline of any nation in history, over 200,000 kilometers. To put that in perspective, Indonesia, famous for its thousands of islands, has the second longest coastline. Ours is nearly 4 times longer. 4 times. This incredible coastline gives us an exclusive economic zone of immeasurable strategic value. To the east, the Atlantic gives us the historic Grand Banks fisheries, a crucial source of protein for a world facing food insecurity. To the west, the Pacific connects us directly to the fastest growing economies in Asia. Ports like Vancouver allow us to trade with Asia on our own terms, maintaining our own diplomatic and commercial independence. But the real game changer is the third ocean, the Arctic. For centuries, the Arctic was a frozen dead end. Now, before our very eyes, it's transforming into a major global commercial highway. And Canada is the gatekeeper. Our northern coast is set to become the 21st century's Mediterranean, a central route for global trade. As the ice retreats, the waters of our Arctic archipelago are becoming one of the most strategic maritime choke points in the world, the first to emerge since the Suez Canal was built. And our Arctic islands aren't just tiny rocks. We're talking about more than 36,000 islands in the archipelago alone. Baffin Island is the 5th largest island on Earth. Ellesmere is the 10th. These are colossal landmasses, bigger than Great Britain, acting as natural sentinels at the top of the world. Forget the small, disputed islands in the South China Sea. Our islands are like massive, unsinkable aircraft carriers, giving us the ability to monitor and control the entire northern region of the planet. Now, if geography sets the stage, resources write the story. And Canada's story is epic. Let's start with the most critical resource of the coming century, fresh water. We have more than 2 million lakes, not thousands, millions. That doesn't even count our rivers, glaciers, or underground aquifers. In total, Canada controls about 20% of the world's entire surface freshwater supply. 20%. This is happening on a planet where major aquifers are drying up and droughts are devastating entire regions. Canada is, quite literally, the Saudi Arabia of water. This water isn't just for drinking. Our unique topography allows us to generate massive amounts of clean, renewable hydroelectric power. Canada is essentially the power pack for the entire North American continent. The American Northeast depends heavily on electricity from Quebec. The Pacific Northwest relies on power from British Columbia's dams. This energy connection gives us incredible diplomatic leverage. When we sit at the negotiating table with Washington, it's worth remembering that we help keep the lights on in America's biggest cities. We control a vital flow of energy that sustains their economic engine. Then there's oil and natural gas. It's become fashionable to dismiss our energy sector, but from a strategic standpoint, that's a huge mistake. The Athabasca oil sands in Alberta are a world-class strategic asset. Canada has the 3rd largest proven petroleum reserves on the entire planet. Only Venezuela and Saudi Arabia have more. But let's look at the reality. Venezuela is in a state of economic collapse. The Middle East is plagued by instability. Canada offers something the world is desperate for: energy security from a stable, reliable democracy that honors its contracts and respects the rule of law. We are the single largest foreign supplier of energy to the United States. But here's the truly stunning fact. The U.S. imports more oil from Canada each year than it does from all OPEC member countries combined. Yes, you heard that right. All of the oil from Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, and the UAE put together doesn't match what we supply alone. This isn't about bragging. It's about understanding the incredible foundation our country is built upon. From our oceans to our water, from our clean energy to our oil reserves, Canada holds a position of quiet, immense strength. It's a strength that will only become more important in the decades to come. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more content like this. See you next time. When we talk about the relationship between Canada and the United States, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For a lot of people, it's this idea that Canada just depends on the US market. And sure, economically, there's some truth to that. But thinking that's the whole story, that's not just incomplete, it's dangerously wrong. The truth is, it's a two-way street. It's mutual dependence. Think about it. The massive American military-industrial complex, the entire transportation network that crisscrosses the continent, the systems that heat homes and offices, and the economy as a whole, they all run on Canadian oil. In a world where global stability seems to be shaking more and more every day, Canada is the one reliable partner ensuring North America does not have to depend on unstable or hostile countries for its energy. We're the bedrock of the continent's energy security. But Canada's real power, its secret strength, isn't just on the surface. We need to look deeper. Way down beneath the forests and the lakes, under all the soil, lies a geological treasure that almost no other country can match. I'm talking about the Canadian Shield. This isn't just a bunch of rocks. It's a vault, a continental-sized vault made of ancient Precambrian and metamorphic rock. And when I say ancient, I mean it. Some of these formations are nearly 4 billion years old, making them some of the oldest rocks on the entire planet. For the early settlers, the shield was a huge pain. It was a barrier that made farming a nightmare and building railways a logistical puzzle. But today, we see it for what it truly is, a treasure chest. For over 100 years, we've been pulling gold, nickel, and copper out of it. But the world has changed. The global economy doesn't just run on steel and oil anymore. Today, the currency of technology is lithium, cobalt, graphite, refined nickel, and rare earth elements. These aren't just nice-to-haves. They are absolutely essential. They are the irreplaceable building blocks of the batteries powering our clean energy future, the microchips in every computer, and the entire digital infrastructure that our modern world is built on. Without these minerals, the transition to clean energy just stops. No viable lithium-ion batteries, no effective solar panels, no way to store energy. The entire green revolution collapses. So, who controls these critical resources right now? Overwhelmingly, it's China. They dominate the extraction, they control almost all the refining, and they manage a huge portion of the processing. And honestly, the Western world is in a panic about it, as it should be. Being dependent on a geopolitical rival for the fundamental materials of your technology and economy is a terrible strategic position to be in. So, the West is scrambling. They're desperately trying to find other sources, to break free from this dependency. They need new, reliable suppliers. And who has the most promising alternative? We do. Canada. The unique geology of the Canadian Shield puts us in the perfect position to become the primary supplier of these critical minerals to our allies in NATO and the entire Western economy. We have the resources in the ground. We have the expertise to get them out and process them. We have the political stability to be a partner you can count on. The only thing we've been missing is the collective political will to fully step up and seize this moment. But the strategic power of this incredible land isn't just buried deep in ancient rock. It's also in the very soil that grows our food, in the forests that act as the planet's lungs, and in the living biomass that supports the global food chain. If the Canadian Shield is the backbone of the digital age, then our prairies and forests are the lifeblood of a world that is getting hungrier and hotter by the day. We often think of national security in terms of armies, missiles, and border patrols. But the most fundamental security of all, the one that truly determines if a society thrives or falls into chaos, is food security. And in that arena, Canada is an absolute titan. Just look at the global numbers. The world's population is pushing past 8 billion people and still climbing. The demand for food is skyrocketing at the exact same time that farmland in other parts of the world is disappearing. Deserts are expanding, cities are paving over fertile land, and climate change is making once productive farming regions unusable. But Canada? We're sitting on some of the most fertile, resilient, and productive agricultural land on Earth. Our prairie provinces, Saskatchewan and Alberta in particular, have the perfect mix of climate, soil, and geography for massive modern farming. We're the world's #1 producer of canola. We're a top exporter of high-quality wheat. We're global leaders in lentils and peas. We help feed the world, but our influence goes even deeper than just grains. Hidden beneath the Saskatchewan plains is another resource, a mineral that might be just as crucial to global stability as oil itself, potassium or potash. This pink gold is the essential, non-negotiable ingredient in the fertilizers that make modern, large-scale agriculture possible. Without it, global crop yields would plummet, leading to mass starvation and social collapse. And guess what? Canada controls nearly half of all known potash reserves in the world. That's not just an advantage, it's a near monopoly. So when political tensions flare up in Eastern Europe, affecting another major producer like Russia, who does the world look to? They look to us. They look to Canada to keep their crops growing, to keep their people fed, and to maintain stability. We don't just feed the world, we provide the very means for the world to feed itself. This gives our government quiet but immense power in international trade and diplomacy. Power that, frankly, we've often been too polite to fully use. And finally, let's look up at the green crown of our nation, the boreal forest. This vast forest stretches in an unbroken band from Newfoundland all the way to the Yukon. It's one of the last great intact forests on the planet. But it's so much more than just a collection of trees. It's a continental-scale carbon sink. The boreal forest stores twice as much carbon per acre as even the dense tropical rainforests. It's a critical defense against climate change. So when you put it all together, the energy security, the critical minerals, the food production, the fertilizer monopoly, and the massive carbon-storing forests, you start to see the real picture. Canada isn't just America's quiet northern neighbor. We are a foundational pillar of global stability. We hold the keys to the energy transition, to digital infrastructure, and to global food security. This land, our land, holds extraordinary power, and it's time we in the world recognize it. Thanks for watching. If you found this interesting, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. See you next time. In an age where carbon emissions are the currency of international diplomacy, our vast boreal forest provides a tangible, measurable service to the entire planet. It regulates the thermostat of the northern hemisphere and filters the air for billions. For too long, we've seen it as just a backdrop for resource extraction. But in a future defined by climate agreements and carbon credits, our stewardship of this forest is an immense asset. We provide an ecological service that stabilizes the climate, not just for us, but for the United States, Europe, and Asia. This is true biological sovereignty. Just as we control our oil and minerals, we must recognize that maintaining the living lungs of the Northern Hemisphere is a contribution that merits political and economic capital. We aren't just a resource economy, we are an environmental superpower. This ecological dominance, combined with our agricultural prowess and incomparable mineral wealth, creates a complete ecosystem of international strategic necessity, all within our borders. While the world digs into the Canadian Shield for the components of the next smartphone, they look to our prairies for their next meal, and to our forests for the clean air they breathe. Now, we must turn our gaze north because that's where the future is being written in real time. Climate change is reshaping our geography and geopolitics at an accelerating speed. The Arctic is warming faster than any other place on Earth. Since 1979, Arctic sea ice has declined by over 2.5 billion square kilometers, a number so large it is hard to comprehend. We must address the environmental gravity of this, but we also have to confront the brutal geopolitical reality that emerges as the ice recedes. The sharks are circling. Russia understood this over a decade ago. They aggressively remilitarized their Arctic coast, reopening old Soviet military bases, testing hypersonic missiles, and building a fleet of nuclear-powered icebreakers that dwarfs the capacity of all Western nations combined. They see the Northern Sea Route not as an international shipping lane, but as their personal toll road, where all Asia-Europe trade must pass under Russian control. Then there's China. Despite being over 1,400 kilometers away from the Arctic Circle, it has unilaterally declared itself a near-Arctic state. This term has no basis in international law. It means nothing. Yet they use it to justify their military and commercial presence in the region. They're building their own icebreakers, investing in mining projects in Greenland, and pushing a vision of a polar Silk Road for Chinese goods to flow over the top of the world, bypassing their strategic vulnerability at the Strait of Malacca. And that brings us to the Northwest Passage. This is the holy grail of modern shipping, a route through our Arctic archipelago that shaves tens of thousands of kilometers off the journey between Europe and Asia. For centuries, explorers died trying to find it. Now, as the ice retreats, it's opening up. This presents the most significant challenge to Canadian sovereignty in our generation. And here is the problem nobody wants to discuss with the clarity it deserves. The United States, our closest and longest-standing ally, fundamentally disputes our claim that the Northwest Passage is Canadian internal waters. Washington argues it's an international strait, meaning foreign naval and commercial vessels can pass through without our permission. Let's be clear about what this means. If the passage is international, Canada loses control over who enters our security backyard. We lose the ability to set environmental standards for oil tankers in pristine Inuit waters. We lose the capacity to block hostile warships. We lose regulatory control over all commercial traffic. This isn't some minor foreign policy detail. It is fundamental to our sovereignty. This is exactly why government investments in Arctic offshore patrol ships and modernizing NORAD aren't just justifiable military spending. They are an assertion of territorial ownership. It's a declaration that we recognize the strategic importance of this region, and we intend to exercise effective control over it. Historically, we've shown the Arctic can be managed through civilized negotiation. The resolution of the so-called Whiskey War with Denmark over Hans Island was a masterpiece of diplomacy. We divided the island and created a land border with Europe through legal procedure, proving Arctic disputes can be resolved without conflict. But with Russia and China, it's different. For them, international law is often secondary to brute power. This remarkable geography we have does more than just provide resources. It forges character. The relentless harshness of the Canadian landscape, the winters that can kill in hours, the vast distances that isolate communities, has created a population that is resilience incarnate. Practical, community-oriented. We see this with particular clarity in the north. The Inuit have inhabited the Arctic for thousands of years. Their continuous presence is the very foundation of our Arctic sovereignty. International law recognizes effective occupation as a legal basis for territorial claims. The communities in Nunavut, the Northwest Territories, and the Yukon aren't just citizens among many. They are the living flag of Canada on the ice. Supporting these communities with modern infrastructure, quality healthcare, and real economic opportunity isn't just generous social policy, it's national security policy. Thanks for watching. If you found this perspective valuable, please like, subscribe, and share it with others. Let's continue the conversation in the comments below. Our sovereignty in the Arctic isn't just a claim on a map. It's built on the presence and well-being of the people who live there. This idea of resilience and quiet strength has always defined our approach to the world. Yes, we're a middle power, but we hold the assets of a superpower. We've always favored working with many partners through multilateralism, peacekeeping, and broad trade deals because we value our independence. This brings us to a sensitive but crucial topic, our relationship with the United States. We are friends, neighbors, and allies, but we are not the same. Our worldview isn't identical. The Canadian perspective, especially from the generation that built our social safety net and brought home our Constitution, deeply values the collective good and national sovereignty. We watch the growing political instability in the United States with real concern. A policy that relies entirely on the U.S. is no longer a guarantee of success. As Washington becomes more unpredictable and protectionist, Canada's own geographic independence becomes our national lifeboat. We can't just be a branch plant for another economy. We have to diversify. We must use our Atlantic and Pacific coasts to build direct trade links with Europe and Asia, bypassing the American middleman whenever we can. We need to refine our own resources right here at home instead of shipping raw materials south only to buy back expensive finished products. We must build our own manufacturing capacity to add value locally. When you put it all together, our immense landmass, control over maritime routes, massive freshwater reserves, critical minerals, energy, food, our vast boreal forest, and the Arctic passages, a new picture emerges. It's a far cry from the modest stereotype we've gotten used to. We have the world's longest coastline, controlling key approaches to the continent. We hold the greatest freshwater reserves of any nation. We're sitting on a mountain of the minerals essential for a digital future. We are the energy guarantor for North America, and we hold the keys to the Northwest Passage, which will be the most strategic shipping road of the next century. We are a superpower in waiting. Not a traditional one defined by aircraft carriers and military might, but a new kind of superpower. A superpower of geography and resources. We are the silent giant of the North. But potential is not power. Potential has to be realized. The challenge for us, and for the leaders who come after us, is to stop apologizing for the size of our country and start using it as a strategic advantage. We need to stop seeing the Arctic as a frozen wasteland and start treating it as our strategic front door. We must stop selling our resources on the cheap and start using them to demand a permanent seat at the global decision-making table. The world is changing fast. The center of geopolitical gravity is shifting northward. History is knocking on our door, whether we like it or not. The question for every generation of Canadians is this: will we be ready to act as the true masters of our own destiny, or will we let others draw the maps that determine our future? I truly believe the answer lies in the character of this country. We are the watchers of the North. We are the guardians of the shield. It's time to recognize that Canada isn't just a space on a map. Canada is the geography that will define the future of the Western world. Thanks for watching.